Picture this. An 18-year-old freshman steps onto the most heavily scrutinized hardwood on the planet. He's carrying one of the heaviest surnames in basketball history on the back of his jersey, and he proceeds to put up numbers that make some of the greatest one-and-done seasons look like a casual warm-up. 22.5 points, 10 boards, 4 assists, shooting nearly 40% from deep, all while having a massive, unavoidable target on his back every single night against the most brutal, unforgiving defenses in the country. When a certain legendary NBA MVP sat courtside and watched this kid systematically dismantle an elite college defense without relying on a single highlight reel dunk, he just shook his head, leaned back, and whispered a terrifying truth about what this kid is actually doing to the game of basketball. We're going to get to exactly what he said, and trust me, it changes how you look at the upcoming NBA draft entirely. But first, you need to understand why the entire scouting world completely misjudged the most dominant, inevitable prospect of this generation. When you hear the name Boozer, your mind immediately transports back to the grinding physical basketball of the early 2000s. You think of Carlos Boozer, a national champion under Coach K at Duke, a two-time NBA All-Star, a bruising, relentless physical force who carved out a legendary, highly respected career banging in the paint for the Utah Jazz and the Chicago Bulls. Being the son of an NBA giant comes with a silver spoon. Sure, access to the most elite trainers on the planet, unrestricted gym access, the best AAU circuits, the cleanest gear, the optimal nutrition. But it also comes with a shadow, a suffocating, omnipresent shadow. From the exact moment Cameron Boozer picked up a basketball and started showing promise, nobody looked at him as just Cameron. They looked at him as Carlos's kid. And in the toxic, hypercritical, clout-chasing world of modern grassroots basketball, that means you never actually get credit for your own sweat. When you dominate, the internet says it's just genetics. When you win a tournament, they say, geese, it's just because you had unlimited NBA resources. You are guilty of extreme privilege until proven innocent on the court. It is a psychological burden that breaks most celebrity kids before they even reach high school. Imagine being 14 years old, stepping into a packed, sweaty high school gym where grown men with tripods and recruiting cameras are already dissecting your every single movement. They are actively waiting for you to fail, hoping you're just a spoiled legacy kid they can write a viral hit piece on. But Cameron didn't shrink. He didn't crumble under the weight of the cameras. While other top-ranked kids were busy building their TikTok following, hunting for viral poster dunks, and complaining about foul calls, Cameron and his twin brother, Caden, who, by the way, is a surgical elite floor general and a massive prospect in his own right, were quietly building a terrifying foundation down in Miami, Florida. They weren't playing for the mixtape cameras. They were playing to completely break the emotional will of their opponents. But even as Cameron began to physically impose himself, developing an NBA-ready frame with broad shoulders and a thick core before he even got his driver's license, the whispers started. The narrative began to form in the scouting blogs. They said he was just bigger than everyone else. They said he was an early bloomer who was simply bullying undersized teenagers who hadn't hit their growth spurt yet. They confidently predicted that once the playing field leveled out, he would become just another good but fundamentally limited player. But Cameron didn't just win. He orchestrated a hostile, undisputed takeover of high school basketball, playing for the powerhouse Christopher Columbus High School in Miami, competing in Florida's unforgiving, brutally athletic Class 7A. Cameron didn't just participate in a winning culture, he became the entire culture. In a state known for producing relentless, hyper-athletic hoopers, the Boozer twins turned their high school program into an untouchable dynasty. 4 consecutive state championships. Let that land. 4 straight years of walking into hostile environments, taking every single team's absolute best punch, taking every gimmick defense, every box and one, every hard foul, and walking out with the trophy anyway. The accolades piled up at a pace that broke the recruiting algorithms. Back-to-back Gatorade National Player of the Year in 2023 and 2025. Two-time Mr. Basketball USA, a McDonald's All-American selection that felt more like a mere formality than an actual achievement. And he didn't just do it on domestic soil against familiar faces. When he put on the Team USA jersey, the dominance translated flawlessly to the international stage. He was crowned MVP of the FIBA U16 Americas Championship. The very next year, he was the MVP of the FIBA U17 World Cup. He was taking elite European and South American prospects, kids who were bred in professional academies since they were children, and putting them in the torture chamber in the post. He was showing a level of maturity, a patience, and a basketball IQ that seemed fundamentally incompatible with a kid who couldn't legally buy a lottery ticket. But the internet scouts, the armchair drafts Twitter gurus, they still weren't impressed. They watched the tape, they saw the overflowing trophy case, and they scoffed. So what? They typed from their keyboards. He's 6'9", 250 pounds. Of course, he's dominating kids who have AP calculus homework tomorrow. He's playing a grounded old school game. Put him against real athletes. Put him in space against grown men in the NCAA, and let's see what happens to all those fundamental pump fakes. And here's where the doubt truly takes root. In today's NBA, we are obsessed with aliens. We want Victor Wembanyama blocking jump shots with his elbow. We want Chet Holmgren running the fast break like a point guard. We want freaks of nature with 40-inch verticals and lightning-fast first steps who defy human anatomy. We have been conditioned to believe that if a prospect doesn't look like a created player on NBA 2K with maximum physical sliders, his ceiling is inherently capped. And Cameron Boozer, he doesn't jump out of the gym. He doesn't have that terrifying explosive burst that leaves defenders stuck in the mud. He is methodical. He is heavy. He plays beneath the rim. The scouting reports started pouring in, and the red flags were highlighted in bold ink. They said he lacked elite separation. They questioned if he could create his own shot in late clock, isolation situations against rangy athletic NBA wings. They asked the dreaded question, can his hips flip fast enough to switch onto a speedy point guard in a modern drop coverage, or is he just going to get hunted in the pick and roll? The critique was that he was a high floor, low ceiling prospect, a safe bet to be a solid starter, but never a franchise altering superstar. The noise reached a boiling point during his senior year. The pressure was suffocating. Where would he go to college? Programs like Miami, right in his backyard, begged him to stay home. Kentucky and Florida rolled out the red carpet. They promised him the absolute keys to the franchise. They promised him an offense tailored completely to hide his athletic deficiencies and maximize his post touches. But in October of 2024, Cameron made a decision that proved he possesses a sickness, a pathological need for pressure. He chose Duke. He chose to walk directly into the crucible of Durham, North Carolina. He chose to put on the exact same blue and white jersey his father wore when he hung a national championship banner under Coach K. By choosing the Blue Devils, Cameron wasn't just accepting a scholarship. He was accepting a target on his back the size of a billboard. The media sharpened their knives. The Cameron crazies expected absolutely nothing less than perfection. If he struggled, if he looked slow against elite ACC big men, the narrative would be set in stone forever. He was just a high school bully who finally got exposed against real competition. Before we move on to what happened next, let me ask you a question. Drop your answer in the comments right now. If you were an NBA general manager staring at a prospect with zero explosive bounce but a genius level basketball IQ, would you bet your franchise on him? Or would you draft the raw athlete with the 40-inch vertical? Leave a comment. I want to see who actually understands the business of basketball. Then came the 2025-2026 college basketball season, the moment of truth. The lights were blinding. The opponents were older, stronger, meaner, and desperate to make a name for themselves by locking down Carlos Boozer's kid. This was the ultimate proving ground. And Cameron Boozer stepped onto the floor and delivered one of the most statistically absurd, terrifyingly efficient and utterly dominant freshman seasons in the history of the sport. Or he didn't just survive the ACC, he turned the entire conference into his personal laboratory. While other highly touted freshmen were rushing their shots, turning the ball over, and looking completely lost in complex defensive rotations, Cameron operated with the cold, calculating precision of a 10-year NBA veteran. He ended his freshman campaign averaging 22.5 points, 10.2 rebounds, and 4.1 assists across 38 grueling games. Think about what that actually means. Let that marinate. Night after night, facing double teams, facing aggressive traps, facing gimmick defenses designed solely to get the ball out of his hands. He never blinked. He never rushed. But the sheer volume of his numbers isn't what terrified the scouts. It was the brutal efficiency. It was the sheer inevitability of his game. He shot an incredible 55.9% from the field. He shot a lethal 39.1% from beyond the arc, and he hit nearly 79% of his free throws. He wasn't just scoring in the low post on dump-offs. He was operating as a complete offensive hub. Give him the ball at the elbow, and he would dissect you. If you backed off to respect his drive, he pulled the trigger on a buttery, smooth, compact jumper that punished drop coverages. If you crowded his airspace, he used brilliant pump fakes, hesitation moves, and elite footwork to displace your balance, stepping through the defense and finishing with a feather-soft touch around the rim. If you sent a blindside double team, he fired laser-accurate passes to cutters before the defense even realized what was happening. He swept the awards season like a Category 5 hurricane. ACC Rookie of the Year, ACC Player of the Year, ACC Tournament MVP. He collected the Karl Malone, Lute Olson, and Pete Newell big man trophies like he was doing side quests. And then, the ultimate crown. He became only the second freshman in the storied, prestigious history of Duke basketball to be named the consensus Naismith College Player of the Year. He proved once and for all that he wasn't just a heavy kid bullying teenagers. He proved he possessed a generational basketball IQ. He is what professional scouts call a true floor raiser, a singular talent who fundamentally shifts the baseline of competency for every single player on the roster. He made the hyper-fast college game look incredibly slow, reading defensive coverages 3 steps before they even materialized on the floor. And that brings us back to that legendary MVP sitting courtside, when LeBron James, a man who understands the suffocating weight of generational hype, the burden of expectations, and the supreme value of basketball genius better than anyone else walking the earth, watched Cameron Boozer systematically pick apart a top-tier college defense, he didn't marvel at a spectacular dunk. He didn't gasp at a flashy crossover. LeBron turned to the people next to him, shook his head in disbelief, and dropped a quote that explains everything you need to know. He said, "He's not playing against the guys on the floor. He's playing against the coach's whiteboard. His mind is already in the league." Let that sink in. The greatest processor of basketball information in NBA history recognized a kindred spirit in an 18-year-old kid. LeBron saw exactly what the internet scouts missed. They were looking at Cameron's vertical leap. LeBron was looking at his mental processing speed. The physical burst might be average, but the cognitive burst, the ability to instantly diagnose a situation, compute the geometry of the floor, identify the weak side rotation, and execute the perfect counter move in a fraction of a second, is strictly alien. Now, the clock is ticking rapidly toward the 2026 NBA draft. The debate is over. The noise has been silenced. The consensus among serious executives is crystal clear. Cameron Boozer is the highest floor prospect in the entire class and the undisputed non-negotiable heavy favorite to hear Commissioner Adam Silver call his name as the number 1 overall pick. The player comparisons being thrown around, front offices are staggering. Imagine the heavy, unguardable post footwork and elite passing vision of Alperen Sengun, seamlessly combined with the lethal perimeter shooting, spacing capability, and switchable team defense of a modernized Carlos Boozer. He's a walking mismatch. A player who doesn't need to jump out of the gym to put you in the basket because he has already beaten you with his brain before the ball even leaves his hands. As he prepares to make the monumental leap to the association, Cameron Boozer is carrying much more than just a famous last name. He is carrying a manifesto. A stark reminder to a league entirely obsessed with raw athleticism that rock-solid fundamentals, flawless technique, and a terrifyingly high basketball IQ are timeless weapons that will always conquer the game. He is inevitable. The only remaining question is, which NBA franchise is going to hand him the keys to their future? Drop your predictions in the comments right now. Who takes him at number 1? And as always, if you want the absolute deepest cuts on the future of the league and the prospects changing the game, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started.